Welcome back to the channel and, the new channel, Laudits TV. If you are new to this channel, never heard of me before, thank you for joining. I do have a parent channel called Laudits, so please go over and subscribe to that. Today, we are joined by a chap that I have met on my various travels around the UK, going to these migrant hotels. Naturally, his identity and keeping that secret is utmost importance to me. So I'm not going to be revealing what hotels, what area, etc., etc. And naturally, G is not going to be revealing anything or slipping up on that. Now, the first thing I just want to caveat is that I make it obvious is, and you may have heard it from his voice already, he does sound very British. Now, G is going to explain why this is the case and why he's going through the asylum process. But what we're going to do is go through a number of questions based on our conversations before. And then what we're going to do is open it up to a Q&A from all of you guys. So you can ask any burning questions you've got for G. So if we're all good to go and we're all happy, including you, G, just let me know and we'll take it from there.
Yes, I'm good to go.
Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just set the scene and background. So, G, can you start by sharing a bit about your journey, to the UK, in the UK, what led you to live in a migrant hotel, without revealing any identifying details, obviously?
Mm-hmm. So basically, as a backstory, when I was a young child, my parents and I left my country when I was really, really young. We first went to a country in Europe, and then we came to the UK. When I was in the UK, I studied at 2 different primary schools, and I also studied at secondary school. And one of the reasons why I believe I was really, I integrated really well is because, I faced a lot of discrimination from my peers. So it always made me feel like I needed to belong. So it helped me, integrate into the culture and that kind of stuff. So that's the whole reasoning behind, my whole accent, that kind of stuff. I never really hung out with people of my own ethnicity. I used to like to hang out with, the British, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Why was that?
Sorry?
Why was that? 'Cause you mentioned something about a sense of wanting to belong. Was that the sort of main driver from that and wanting to sort of assimilate, or was there something else?
Yeah, it was a sense of wanting to assimilate. It's because so the kids from my school was quite relentless in their bullying, and I was, the odd one out. I didn't have anyone else who shared the same ethnicity as me at the schools that I used to go to. So I was basically like the black sheep of the bunch. So because of that, I used to face a bunch of bullying, discrimination, and I always felt like I needed to belong, and I think that was a huge key driving factor into me assimilating to British culture and that kind of stuff. Which is why I speak, which is why even today I speak the way I do. But also one thing about me is I don't really know my home country's language, because when I was a certain age, when I was an adolescent, my family made the decision to go back to my home country because, in their words, I was becoming too westernized.
Really?
Yeah. People from my country have like this really strong sense of nationalism.
Okay.
And like they don't really take too kindly of like if people from their country don't act or don't sound like them, that kind of stuff. So so when I did go back, I couldn't really connect with anyone there. And I've always kept in touch with people back in the UK. And since it was the time where the internet was becoming widespread, because mobile phones, that kind of stuff, I always stayed close to UK news, UK TV shows, In-Betweeners, EastEnders, that kind of stuff. So I never really moved apart from that kind of part of my life.
Yeah.
And when I did go back to my country, I was fortunate enough to go to a private school where the school was basically had an English curriculum, so the teachers and everything were English as well. The head teacher was English. We had English teachers, so I never really learned my home country's language, which is why I still speak the way I do today.
Yeah, which is quite standard with the international schools. People either sound international American or international British.
Yeah, Yeah, but yeah, even there, I was like the black sheep of the bunch because there were students from my home country who were studying in a foreign school, but I was the only one who knew the foreign culture that they were studying from. Basically, like I was the only one who had stuff in common that could like have banter with the teachers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I did come back, a series of events. My country's like really hard to get out of.
Okay.
So like, if you,
What do you mean by that?
it's like almost impossible. There's only like two ways people can leave. Like the passport's not really strong, and the only countries you can go to are even more oppressive than the country I used to come from.
Okay.
So there's not
Wow.
really a lot of worldwide information when it comes to my country. Not a lot of people pay attention to it. So like any human rights abuses or that kind of stuff, nobody really knows about because most of it is really internally investigated and it doesn't leak out into the outside world because it affects the investments and stuff they receive from other countries and help. So yeah, so
Wow.
any problems we have internally, it doesn't really go outside of the country. But yeah,
So quite restrictive on social media and
yeah,
things like
you'll
that.
never hear anything. Yeah, you'll never hear anything about the sort.
Wow.
But yeah,
It's interesting though that while your parents came over here, then if they've got that real strong sense of nationalism, surely they knew that they'd bring a child over, there'd be some assimilation needed
yeah,
on
they didn't
your
assume it
part.
would be to my extent. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this one thing between like I'm not sure if like any of the watchers come from immigrant families themselves, but um, immigrant families also feel a sense of racism towards other races. They have like these biases, that kind of stuff,
Mm.
and they used to warn me about certain races, that kind of stuff, but I never really understood why. Because like in my experience, I never really had any problem with those other people, right?
Yeah.
So like I used to go against any single word they used to say. They used to tell me basically. Um, I guess they assumed that me being close enough to them would help me retain at least some of my own home country's culture, I guess.
Yeah. 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 I appreciate that. I've had a few friends like that growing up from certain
Yeah.
parts of the world, and yeah, their parents are very much like that as well. So I can empathize with that, G.
Yeah.
This is going to be an interesting one and something I know I've spoken with you a little bit on, but of course the viewers won't have had access to that. But so you've lived in the UK for 16 years and were raised with those British values that which you've
Yep.
spoken about. How
Yep.
does it feel to navigate the asylum process as someone who considers Britain home?
It's not very fun, actually. I've
No.
had this exact conversation with the workers at the Home Office, that kind of stuff. They're always taken aback by me. They ask me
Yeah.
like, "How did you end up here?" Like, and I've always felt that people are usually always surprised when they talk to me because they see my identity documents and they when they find out I'm an immigrant, they're usually surprised because they're always like, "Oh, I thought you were born here," that kind of stuff. It's always stuck with me, and like the Home Office was the same. And as a person, who considers myself, even though maybe some others maybe won't, British, it's very daunting. It's not very fun. It feels like very demeaning and degrading. But yeah, it's not very fun.
That's because, well, it took me by surprise, and when we first met,
Yeah,
because when we first met, I thought that you worked there,
yeah,
at that hotel, and then it was through talking, and obviously I won't say too much, but it was a shock. So yeah, it's not a surprise the sort of reactions you get from the Home Office when
yeah,
they're going through this process and
yeah,
they meet you. So very surreal.
yeah,
Now, naturally, I've been to a lot of these hotels. I've worked with some other YouTubers who've gone inside. I've gone inside a few, but of course, we've only gone into those general, publicly accessible areas, reception, etc. We've not gone into the heart of
outside.
some of these hotels. Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the general atmosphere like in the hotel that you're staying? And can you paint a picture of daily life there for us?
So, daily life. Well, I'll start with the basics. Breakfast is served between 7:30 and 9. We get 3 meals a day. Some hotels have like some hotels have less food than the others. Most of it is catered by different catering companies. The hotels don't actually make them inside.
Yeah.
So yeah, the food is simple as in like rice and chicken most of the time. So it's just like normal stuff. As in other than that, I guess yeah, that's just all there is to it. We usually have the lounging area. In my hotel, we have a lounging area and a few other details
Yeah.
things. We also have a separate praying area for um, Muslim asylum seekers. Yeah,
Separate.
yeah, we have a separate area that's been turned into a sort of praying area for the Muslim asylum seekers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's designated religious reasons for them to pray.
yeah.
But aren't there other people of other religions there as well that could do
There's
with
not that
an
many.
area of worship?
There's not many. And
No.
even if there were other people of other religions, they usually practice it their own way.
Mm.
Out of everyone in the, from my experience, in my specific situation, I'd say about 90% of the people in my current hotel is Muslim, and there's a
90%.
very small, yeah, and there's a very small minority of Christians. Yeah, it's mostly Muslims.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And has the creation of that area specific for Muslims come from a home office, hotel guidance, or have they just sort of done it themselves?
They've done it themselves.
Oh, right. Okay. And there's been no pushback from the hotel managers, or are they Muslim as well? And the security guards, what's the situation with that?
Well, the security guards are mostly immigrants, as you probably saw.
No
There's,
comment.
yes, there's not really a pushback against it, because I'm assuming the hotel staff, even if they did have a problem with it, they wouldn't want to talk to the Muslim asylum seekers about it, because there's been quite a few instances where fights broke out, that kind of stuff, and it was over like the most menial stuff. Fights have broken out
Okay.
inside of the hotel over, them not liking the food. Most of the fights actually happen because they don't like the food. They complain about the food in one hotel, and then they come to this hotel. Then they complain about the food. They become really aggressive, and they come in groups. And if you have an argument with one of them, then you're basically pretty much cornered by all of them. So it's not really, there's not really a pushback against them using that prayer area, that kind of stuff.
Wow. Okay. So it can be kind of like quite gang pack mentality then.
Yeah, there are some individuals who are exceptionally hostile, but it's not all of them. But yeah.
Okay. How, what's sort of the way of dealing with them? Do police ever come to the hotel to deal with those that are aggressive or violent?
Yeah, they do. Um, but most of the time, even though the hotel staff or maybe the housing officers, even though they're worried by their behavior, the police can't really arrest them because they haven't really done anything yet, even if they're being hostile. Um, so the police usually just come and talk to the individual and just leave, and the individual stays in. We've had quite a few instances where the police came because someone was being exceptionally hostile, but the police
Mm.
left without really doing anything.
Standard.
Yeah,
They'd rather arrest people outside with a camera.
yeah,
So you mentioned earlier about the meals being served 3 meals a day. What
yep.
sort of choice do you get in that? Are you given a menu, or are you just told what
Oh,
you're eating?
we're not really given a menu. It's like more of a canteen style type of food, more like canteen style type of food. You have
Yeah,
your carbs, and then you have your protein, and then you have vegetarian option. Um, and yeah, and during breakfast you have the assortments. You have maybe cereal, that kind of stuff. But it doesn't
yeah,
really diverge that much. At first, the other asylum seekers had lots of problems with the food. They kept
yeah.
complaining about how they're eating the same stuff every day. They don't like it, so the hotel has had to improvise and try to mix up the menu to keep them satisfied. And well, they haven't caused that much problems lately.
Right. Okay. So because they're being
Yeah,
placated, sort of thing.
yeah, they're being given like different types of food every day now.
Wow. Okay. So they've already realised that if they kick up a fuss, they can get what they want.
Yeah, I've talked to the housing officers, because the housing officers who are in charge of us is the company workers. I've talked to them.
Hmm.
I've told them, can't you just tell them if you don't like the food, go somewhere else? Like, can't you just tell them that? And then they tell me like it's not worth the hassle, that kind of stuff. So it bugged me a lot. I got into a few arguments myself with the people because they say they're coming from like countries where they come from war, they've been hungry, that kind of stuff. But then no one who's hungry complains about food.
Right. This
And it's
is what
only
we've said before.
yeah, there's only a few people who are like really grateful for getting food. They like really love it, even if it's just even if they're eating just plain rice, they eat it. They have no complaints because they're really happy to have like full bellies, right? But it's like a huge majority of them that always complain about the food, so like nothing's really good enough for them, and it really bugs like the small minority of us, but we can't really say anything to them, or like we can't really do anything much about it.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's understandable. Wow. Okay. Now what I'm going to look at next is the asylum process and home office practices, which again we've spoken about in a bit of detail. And just for the benefit of the audience, there's quite a lot of favoritism involved in the process.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd go as far to say corruption, because there's not really any evidence yet to suggest that, and I have to be careful about what I say without hardcore evidence, as you can imagine. But if we start off with, because you mentioned that the Home Office decides asylum claims based on just 1 to 2 hours of interviews for most applicants.
Yeah.
What do you think this limited screening misses about a person's background or intentions?
Their intentions, what they plan on doing. Even if, let's say, I think one big question that the Home Office fails to ask the people, even if they do have genuine intentions, what are your plans in the future? Like, do you have any plans? Like, do you have any like set motion of plans? Like, all of these people are coming here with like a common idea that the UK is like full of gold, maybe. Because their friends who've gained residency in this country call back home, like brag about the UK, showing off like the houses and stuff they got. So they come thinking, oh, we'll get the same treatment as them. Every single person that I've talked to has assumed the same thing. They assume that if they come to the UK, the streets are lined with gold. And whenever I ask them like, what are your plans in the future? I've only met 2 people who've actually had a solid plan. I've only met 2 people who had a plan to get a job as a engineer, no, as a mechanic, sorry. As a mechanic, and I had another person who I met who planned on starting a business, hopefully. But everyone else has no solid plan of what they plan on doing in the future. So you have a bunch of people who are released out into the public, specifically men, who have no like direction in life, and they're given food, housing, and they have a lot of free time on their hands, and they don't really they just have a lot of free time. And like when men of certain places have free time, that's when things start to get dangerous. And I've talked to the people in the hotels about this. I always ask them like, why did you come here? Like, you could have stayed in Germany. They come all the way throughout these countries, and a lot of them do say that they're smuggled, but they're not smuggled. They don't really pay people. Some of the people don't even have to pay the smugglers. The charities help pay for the journey, so they don't really have to pay money to come here.
Charities?
Yeah.
Do you know which one? Which charities are they mentioned?
They didn't really mention any specific charity by name, but one of them did mention the Red Cross. So like they help them come to Europe.
Wow. So the Red Cross are helping them come from what, say, Africa, Middle East to Europe?
Mostly the Africans, actually.
Wow. Okay. And is that through like paying for the plane tickets, or is it going on boats across?
Boats.
Wow. So crossing from, say, like Egypt or Libya or somewhere up to the Mediterranean.
Yeah, people, generally speaking, the people from the Middle East who do come here seeking for asylum, they can pay for the boats. They pay for the boats. The Africans don't have enough money to pay for the boats, so the charities help them. But people from the Middle East, from what I've seen, whenever they come to the hotels, they always have enough money to see them from the beginning of the asylum process till the end, and maybe even after, to help them pay for housing, that kind of stuff. They always come with enough money to cover all of their expenses, but they stay at the hotels regardless.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a bit of an eye-opener there. Because there's actually a protest planned this Saturday. Also, this for you guys in chat on Saturday at RNLI headquarters in Poole. There you go, another charity. So just to go back to the original question, so you think that
interview, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. There needs to be more questions around their intent. And like you said, the majority of them just have family members or friends in this country, who are handed things through social welfare, and they're going to expect the same.
Yeah.
Wow.
Social welfare, that kind of stuff. And when they call back home, they talk to their friends and family about how great it is, and then they make the journey here.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
But regarding the interviews, the Home Office only decides if they get to stay in the UK or not based on 2 interviews.
Okay.
So the first interview, the screening interview, doesn't really take a long time for them because there's hundreds of them that are waiting for these screening interviews at the borders of the UK, right? So they pretty much rush them in. They ask them where you came from, how did you come here, and that's it. They have an interpreter at the time. They ask them maybe 2-3 questions that are important, but after that, they pretty much bust into London and then disperse into separate hotels.
And
for the
that's the initial site of accommodation, isn't it? They go to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then for the substantive, like the big interview, the one that's really important because they have an interpreter most of the time. As you can guess, there's it takes about 3 hours and 30 minutes in total. And of those 3 hours and 30 minutes, the interviewer asks the question, the interpreter translates it for them. The person answers it, the interpreter translates it again, and then the Home Office person writes it down. So they don't really have enough time to really ask them about where they're from, that kind of stuff. And if you say you're from like any dangerous countries, maybe Sudan, Eritrea, or Afghanistan, they pretty much just fast track you through the whole queue. They don't really check your answers, that kind of stuff.
Oh, they don't even try and interrogate them further to, go beyond sort of like superficial answers to see if they're actually telling the truth.
Yeah, like for example,
that's actually going to be my next question. Sorry, I know but just because I think to cover it off, so you can answer this one, but then go on to the next one. Because you said migrants from countries like Syria or Afghanistan are fast tracked for asylum, even if they're not actually from those places.
Yeah.
After you've answered the last one, can you share any examples of how people have prepared to misrepresent their origins and why you think the Home Office accepts that at face value?
Well, all they have to say is they were born in those countries and the family ran away to a separate neighboring country. So they lie about being from those they're originally from those neighboring countries. They were never from those dangerous countries in the first place. So they tell the Home Office they ran away to those neighboring countries. If the Home Office asks them, why can't you speak that language? Oh, because my family ran away to that neighboring country. They tell the Home Office stuff like, oh, my family was killed, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the heartstrings. But they talk to their families at home. I've seen their interview questions, but that's how they basically get away with it. And because the Home Office can't really disprove it, because they've thrown away any of their identity documents, they can't really disprove it. So they have to pretty much, according to policy, just let them in.
You mentioned there about throwing away ID documents. I've had conversations with some people who've admitted that, and I've seen some other videos. But you got any examples of people who've admitted that to you?
Yeah, all of them. Some of them keep them hidden because they lie about their home country. After they get approved for asylum, they can fly back to their actual country, visit the family, friends, maybe check up on the businesses, that kind of stuff, and then come back.
Yeah.
So some of them keep the original identity documents well hidden. I'm not sure what the Home Office does to, check what things they have on them. But people, as soon as they get approved, some of them go back to their home countries. As soon as they get approved and they come back.
Wow. Okay. And where a few of these, well, actually not a few, I'm going to change that word, most now, based on what you've been telling me, most of these migrants who have lied about their country of origin, have any of them divulged to you their actual country of origin, where they're actually from?
Yeah, they have.
Can you give us some examples?
So basically, if you're anywhere from the Middle Eastern area, any countries that can speak Arabic, you can lie and say you're from Syria. There's Egyptians, there's Moroccans, there's Kuwaitis, people from Kuwait, which is a really well-off country as well. They all say they're from countries like Syria, and they come. I've met Egyptians, Kuwaitis. I've only seen one actual Syrian person here. But yeah, those people will usually come here through by saying they're from you know, Syria.
Yeah.
And lots of people, you know, around Eritrea say they're actually from Sudan or Ethiopia, countries like those.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you. Now, I remember you sharing with me that you were initially rejected for asylum.
Yep.
And I find it really striking that you were told your education worked against your asylum claim because
Yes,
you
it did.
could reintegrate in your home country.
Yes, it did.
How did the Home Office justify that? And do you think that policy prioritizes the wrong people, considering how most people here want to build an immigration system on, net value, people who come in and improve in their country?
Yeah, it definitely works against, you know, the best interests of the country, of course. I've also met many asylum seekers who say they don't have an education in order to get papers, but a lot of them don't have any education at all. For me, the Home Office justified their refusal by saying that because I have an education, it's possible to reintegrate. But I've told them numerous times in both my screening interview, which was like 5 hours long, and my big interview, which was 4 hours long. I've told them numerous times that I can't speak the language of the country.
Yeah.
And I've told them, you know, all of my struggles that I had to go through in order to get an education in that country, seeing as, you know, the language difference and everything. Because my home situation, my actual situation, my family situation is really bad.
Yeah.
And well, I was pretty much homeless in my home country, and I was only able to, you know, survive because through friends and couch surfing, that kind of stuff. And, you know, a person's family helped me by getting into university by, you know, this is all really irrelevant. But I've told them numerous. Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
No, I appreciate it. I can't believe it that they're pushing away somebody who's educated and favor somebody that's uneducated. It's mad.
One thing that I would like to add is
Yeah.
the Home Office, they did send some supporting documents to, you know, justify their refusal. But if you read through the documents carefully, it validates everything that I said about the country and the police system there and the government and everything.
Yeah.
But the Home Office only read it at the face value. They read it like the first 2 paragraphs maybe, but they didn't read into it, which is one of the reasons why I still have, you know, quite an issue with them, because it took them a really, really long time to consider my claim. They have 8 hours total of interview, 8 hours total of interview material with me, and there's not really much to miss in there. So yeah,
That's mad. Sorry, secretary. I just need to move something in my office. I need to shut the curtains because I look like I've got a huge halo on my face. So just bear with me a second. There we go, guys. Right. Thank you. Thanks for waiting. Right, I can actually see now. Okay, now we all know this, and I'm glad you're sharing this opinion of the Home Office, but you have described them as inept and mentioned favoritism.
inefficient.
And mentioned favoritism among staff, particularly those from immigrant backgrounds. So what I mean by that is, say, African people who work at the Home Office may favor other African people who are going through the process.
Yeah.
Can you share any specific examples, without naming individuals, of how this favoritism plays out in the asylum process or even the hotel management?
In the hotel management, there's not really any favoritism. They're just basically doing the jobs. They're trying to keep their heads down, not, you know, make anyone, you know. I don't know how to describe it, but sorry, I don't have like a clear way to answer that question. Sorry.
That's okay.
You could just like expand on it.
Yeah, well, in terms of you mentioned that there was some favoritism, the Home Office from people of certain backgrounds prioritizing asylum seekers, migrants from their background as well. Can you give some examples of that where you've seen that in action?
Um, I haven't really seen that in action, but what I did, sorry, I'm going to clarify my point again. What I did mention was the Home Office prioritizes people from certain countries more, not as in like maybe they have the same nationalities, but what I meant is they prioritize people of certain nationalities. I'm not sure if the people are the same nationalities themselves, but
Okay, that's understandable. Thank you. Now, what's your take on sort of the lack of oversight after asylum seekers are moved from hotels to shared homes?
yes.
How does this allow people to disappear or work illegally, and why do you think it's not being addressed?
Well, to be honest, there's not really there's a huge lack of oversight when it comes to the hotels as well as the dispersal homes. There's quite a few instances of people coming to the UK on a boat, claiming asylum, getting sent to a hotel and just disappearing because they already have friends and family here that will take care of them. So they don't really have to go through the whole hassle of it at all. And in terms of oversight, because the Home Office, doesn't really want to restrict the people's rights and force them to stay in the hotel and stuff. The people can pretty much roam around, and because they're roaming around, they can find jobs and everything. So, which is against the rules, because if you're applying for asylum, you're not allowed to work, and that's grounds for instant deportation. But the people don't really care. The people who are working for the housing companies are mostly from immigrant backgrounds as well. So I feel like well, from what I heard, since the last time you came to the hotel and I asked them, why wouldn't you let me speak to them? They said, oh, they're racist. Look at them, they're white, they're racist. They don't like people like us. They don't like us at all. I think there's like this huge divide between like immigrants who are raised here and like the white natives of this country. I think there's been a huge divide in recent years. And I don't think they see eye to eye anymore. They just assume every white person is racist now.
Wow.
Which is why I was really confused.
So just to clarify, because that is huge, the people in the hotels, whether that's sort of the hotel staff or security or other asylum seekers, migrants, think that all white people are racist and hate them.
Yeah, they tell us not to talk to them. It's not worth it. Which is why they wouldn't let me talk to you the last time.
Wow. Yeah, because they'll find out that we're not that way that they're saying.
Yeah.
And
when it comes to the housing, sorry, I'll let you continue.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Jay. I'll ask afterwards. Thank you.
Okay. Also, there's a maximum amount of time you can leave the hotel for, and the maximum amount of time you can leave the hotel for is 7 days. But people leave much, much longer than that. They leave for months at a time, visiting the family, maybe touring around the country. And the housing officers don't have a way to check how long they've been gone. And the security guards mostly don't really even write it down. So they basically have free reign of the country anyway, so they can go anywhere. I've met this one individual who, when he was at the hotel, he went to Bournemouth, he went to Edinburgh, he went to London, he went clubbing, and nobody checked up on that. And It happens a lot more than you think. People go to different cities to their friends and relatives where they work for a few days, make some money, come back to the hotels, to the free housing and free food, and then go back. They're basically, there's no oversight on any of this, and I've never really understood it.
That's I'm shocking. I'm not surprised, but shocking that the Home Office are talking about assimilation, yet this message is not being stopped and made clear that the natives aren't racist and don't hate them. And it's strange that they'd come to a country where they think people hate them and are racist.
Yeah.
What's the long-term objective here with them?
Well, to be honest, when I talk to people from the Middle East countries, this is what shocked me the most when I heard them say it, because anyone from any other country, let's say if a person goes to Japan, you have to know Japan. You have to know Japan to work there. You have to know Japan to work and live there. Yeah. But one thing that I've heard the most from Middle East backgrounds, they don't have to assimilate into the UK. they don't have to learn English. Their friends and family told them, if you come to the UK, you don't even need to learn English. You just need to have Arabic. You can find work and everything. You'll be okay. And that's why they came.
Shocking.
Yeah, they've confessed that to me. So they don't really need to learn English.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing this, G. A lot of people are saying thank you in the chat. I don't know if you can see that, but a lot of them are saying thank you very much for being brave and sharing this with us.
No worries.
Wow. Now, of course, we've already said that the hotels can be chaotic with issues like food waste, dirty rooms, bullying of staff.
There's so much food waste that you wouldn't believe it.
Well, you said that they can be very picky with things.
Yeah, they can be very picky. They can be very picky. So if they don't like the food here, they go out to eat at KFC or McDonald's, or they go out to eat at restaurants because they come with money. So I don't understand why the Home Office is giving them money as well on top of it. But yeah, if they don't like the food here, they go to different restaurants. They go out and eat. And every night, from what I see at my hotel, there's kilograms and kilograms of food being dumped out, and it's just a waste.
And of course, we're having to foot the bill.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you say is like one of the most shocking incidents you've seen in the hotel? Because you mentioned violence, you mentioned a lot of food waste. What would you say is the most shocking thing for you that sticks in the back of your mind?
I think there's this one individual from a different country. I'm not sure if I can specify the country, but he was a male of African descent. He claimed he was 19 years old, but he was smoking. He had tattoos. And the first day he came to the hotel, he was very aggressive. He tried to fight a security guard. He tried to fight the housing officers. And he was demanding to be housed straight away. And they told him, we can't do that. You have to stay here. But he just kept saying no. The police came. The police couldn't do anything. He kept trying to fight them. And no one could do anything about him. And you get individuals like this who are really, really aggressive, and there's nothing you can do.
It's madness.
Yeah, I think it was also during like Ramadan and stuff. Like you couldn't really eat in front of the others.
They were stopping you from eating.
No, they weren't stopping us, but you couldn't eat in front of them. Like it was just the weirdest thing. Like they have their praying times. There's some individuals who are nice. There's some individuals who are nice and like used to pray in their rooms. They didn't really care what others do.
Yeah.
But like if you made any noise when they're praying, like it's not your religion, you get me? But they get really aggressive. They tell you to shut up and like not go near their praying area, that kind of stuff. They're like really aggressive. But the most shocking thing was that person trying to fight the staff and everything.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it in these hotels. Mass brawls, violence, where even people in the hotels killing members of staff. You know, we saw it up in Walsall with that poor woman, an argument over food.
About the Walsall thing, a lot of the migrants who came from, who were, oh, sorry, never mind, I can't talk about this.
No, that's okay. No, I appreciate it. I know it can be a bit dangerous where you are. You did hopefully be able to answer this one because you mentioned this before that drug use, illegal work seem to be rampant, particularly among certain groups like Kurdish or Vietnamese.
Yeah.
How do these activities go unnoticed or unreported by staff or authorities?
I don't think anyone goes to check on it enough. I guess there's lots and lots of people who go out to work in shops. Any of the corner shops, the people, you just assume they've been working there for a long time. I think people just naturally assume they have the papers and documents, but they don't. And a lot of them sell illegal substances illicitly. I know this because I've accidentally seen it myself.
Right.
Yeah. There was this one person who I was helping out with this case and stuff. After he got accepted, he was from a difficult country, but he asked me to go with the job center with him, to the job center with him. And on the way back, he said, "Let's stop by this shop." And then there was a shop he went into, and he just came out with like grams and grams of illicit substances. I'm not sure what the exact name is. I think it's called hash or something. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's illegal in the UK, but he came out with grams and grams of it. And when I asked him, like, where do you get this? Like, how did you know, like, the shop sells it? And he was like, oh, all Kurdish sell it in the city. And I think that's like the thing that really surprised me is like all of the Kurdish like sell it.
All of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've got organized groups that they can just walk
Yeah, and like
into
if
and
if
just
you
sit in
ask
their
about
network.
yeah, if you ask about it, they call you, you know, racist because you're not, you haven't witnessed it from the inside. But I feel confident in saying that because I've seen it from the inside.
Yeah, and that's why your testimony is so valuable. You know, with this,
Yeah.
it's madness. Where are the
Yeah.
sort of women and children in these hotels? How are they usually divided? Because I've seen both. You know, some people still don't believe that I've seen hotels with families in, but I've seen it firsthand. And you mentioned stumbling upon a separate hotel for female refugees.
Yeah, that
What can you
was
tell us about
kept
their
quite.
situation?
That was really under the wraps.
Okay.
I can't. I've never been inside of it. That's the thing. So I accidentally stumbled upon it. I never knew it was there. So like, the hotel you saw me at is quite out in the open. The people were sitting outside, so it's obvious that it was a hotel. But this one time when I was going into the city center to help, you know, the people with the documents, that kind of stuff, they always end up coming to me, you know, to ask me for help. One time we accidentally stumbled into a hotel. We were looking for a different type of building, and when we knocked on the door, a security guard came out, and he was like, "What business do you have here? Who are you looking for?" And then he opened the door, and then like this lady came up behind us and walked inside, and he like, go away," and he closed it. And they're like very secretive.
Okay. Do you think that's
Yeah.
just to protect the women, or do you think there's
No, it
something
was only
else
women.
going on in these hotels?
I have no clue, but it was only women in that one.
Okay. That's okay. That's interesting. Um, Now, I want to just sort of do the final part on sort of broader implications and public perceptions.
Yep.
Um, you've mentioned that many migrants in the hotels openly admit they're here for benefits and free housing with no
Yes.
intention of learning English or working.
Yes.
How does this affect your view of the UK's immigration system and how you think it'll impact British society?
And I think in the broader sense, it just like encourages more negative behavior and more people coming in. Like if there's a certain number of people who don't really have to work and the welfare system is only supporting them even though they're not supposed to, um, it just makes others like lose the will to work or like try to work for themselves. If everything is given out for free, no one's gonna really try to work hard for anything they get. Um, I've talked to a person whose friend allegedly owns like 3 houses in the UK that have been given to him.
Right.
He doesn't live in any of them. And he lives in the hotel still apparently, and like he rents them out, and he makes lots and lots of money from it. And like all of them know how to like um, manipulate the system so they can jump the queue and get where they can get the best houses and everything. They know how to exploit the system very well. And like if you go to one of the councils and like you happen to meet someone who has the same nationality as you, they're more open to helping you than others.
Hmm.
Because I've tried to help this person find. I've helped many people try to find houses after they got the papers. Um, um, they always ask me to come with them, to translate and that kind of stuff, even though I don't know the language. They speak like a little bit of broken English, and I've spoken
Okay.
to them enough to kind of piece together what they mean.
Hmm.
So because of that, I've always ended up going to the councils to find the houses for them. But there's this one specific time where I went with this one individual who was African, and the council wasn't really doing anything to help him. So we left the place. We didn't really manage to get anything done. And then this other time, I went with this one person who was from Iraqi descent, and he saw this person at the council place who was Iraqi. And then the person suddenly started telling him how to do everything. They started looking for houses for him. They started giving options straight away.
Wow. Okay. So you definitely got a leg up there and a foot up.
Yeah, if people working at the council see someone who has the same nationality as them, they definitely help them out a lot more, even if they're not supposed to.
Whilst British natives get pushed down the ladder. Okay.
Yeah, but also the thing is, a lot of the there's a small minority of people who do come to the hotels for legitimate reasons, who look at how the Home Office and the government's treating its own people and like how are they doing this to them. Like there was this one instance where there was this old lady who was asking us for directions when we were outside of the hotel, but then the security was trying to like kick her out and trying to get her to leave while we were trying to help her out. And the people were just shocked at how the government was treating its own people, and they were like, are you telling us like they do this to their own people? And I was like, yeah. Why do you think a lot of people are angry about this? And they were like, I never knew that.
Okay,
Even the people are
so some weren't aware. Okay, so some people in the hotels weren't aware that the government was treating them better than their own citizens.
Yeah, they don't know this at all. They just assume British people are racist because they don't really read the news or anything. But they just assume they're racist, and like when they see it happen, that's when they start to question like, why is the Home Office doing this to like the elderly or the homeless? Why are they doing that? They don't even understand it themselves.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and I suppose I do agree with that because where I've been to these hotels initially, the first interaction I have with them is they're very suspicious, but then once they start talking and they realise that I'm not a racist. They tend to open up and call me good guy. It's always good guy. So that's so nice to hear. But just going back on that, you mentioned that some aren't aware that its own, British citizens aren't getting the same level of treatment that these migrants are. But you've also said that some migrants view British authorities as weak because they prioritise migrants over their own citizens.
Yeah, they do.
So are some aware and some aren't? Do they not talk about that?
From what I've witnessed, it's only people from the Middle East who know about this stuff happening, and they think they abuse it to the fullest extent. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of people, even British people, like if you saw 20 quid on the floor, you wouldn't try to start looking for the owner. You'd be like, oh look, it's 20 quid, it's free. You just take it. There's a lot of people with that sort of nature in them. It's not only them, but a lot of other people from the Middle East just view the authorities as weak. They know they can walk on them. They know that everyone else has to walk around eggshells on them, and they know like if they claim any sort of mental problems, that kind of stuff, they get beneficial treatment straight away.
Wow. Okay. That's that's not going to go down well.
Yeah, they have a lot of inside knowledge inside of how the process works, that kind of stuff. So they know how to abuse the system very well.
Is that because of people of similar descent that work in the public sector?
In the public sector, as well as non-profits, as well as immigration lawyers, that kind of stuff, as well as their friends and families in the UK. I know I've met a lot of people in the hotels who have already claimed asylum and in different countries and have gotten papers from those countries, but they didn't like it living there, so they came on the boats and they threw away their documents here. I've met people from Sweden, Turkey, Greece, who've thrown away the documents in the sea, so they can maybe look for asylum here and get better benefits.
Wow.
Yeah.
More and more is being revealed.
Yeah, I don't know how the Home Office doesn't check with the European Union, like whether these people have claimed asylum and like gotten the papers in these countries or not. Because these people, I asked them like, oh, so you got those papers in like Turkey? So it was a safe country. Like, why didn't you say that? Like, I don't like it, that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't say it to their face, but I would always judge them for it. And they would say like, but the UK's better because this, and they'd throw away their documents. Nobody checks, and they get asylum here. So they basically have asylum in 2 separate countries, and I don't know how. It just seems like a massive oversight from the Home Office, and I think it's because they rush the cases because they claimed they were from like those dangerous countries, so the Home Office doesn't really check anything about them.
It's easier just to process, I guess, for them.
Yeah.
You've suggested that Home Office should have undercover officers in hotels to 100%. Identify problematic individuals. What other practical changes do you think could fix the issues you've seen in the system?
the practical changes. So first of all, have some officers from the Home Office who conduct the interviews and everything. Have them stationed in the office so they can process more than 2 people a day. Because at these hotels, maybe 2 people, maybe one person goes to interview, they get taxied, and there's hundreds of hotels around the UK housing migrants, right? They all get taxi service to and from the reporting centres. So first of all, you can cut down on money spent on taxis by having the Home Office offices inside of the hotels. If you have people from who can understand, the languages these people speak, you can also weed out who's lying about their cases. If you have someone who's undercover, like you just go to the canteen, you listen to the conversations. They talk to their phones, they talk to their friends and families all the time back at home. They seem happy. I don't even talk to my family because that's how that's how worried, that's how scared I am. But these people talk to the friends and families back home. It's like coming to vacation for them. And for me, it just seems super unfair. These people lie about everything, and the Home Office doesn't really check. So the Home Office should have people in the hotels who are conducting interviews 24/7, making sure as many people, they can process as many people as possible. Those who are rejected, they can send back straight away, and that's it. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
I suppose they get first-hand experience of what their actual behaviour is like as well, and whether there's somebody that we should be wanting in the country, which I totally get. Now I know we've been on for almost an hour now, so I want to sort of get to the Q&As in a second. So I really appreciate your time, and also everyone in the chat. I know this is fascinating stuff. So
there's also one thing that I did want to mention as well that I think is huge wasteful spending on the part. I think a lot of people, myself included, have been wondering why this issue has never been addressed before. But I think the reason why they're not addressing it is because there's so many industries that are being propped up by the asylum crisis. So the hotels themselves were probably in danger of shutting down, because of other businesses like Airbnb taking them out, not having enough patrons. So maybe the hotels were in danger of closing down because the hotel where I'm staying at, I was probably one of the first arrivals. So when I first came, it was really run down, it was really old, but a warm place to stay is a warm place to stay. Where was I going with this? There's a lot of industries that are being propped up by the asylum system. So you have many immigration firms that are depending on asylum seekers going to them to look for financial legal aid. So they receive money from the government. The government funds them to work on their cases. They don't really do much. They talk to the asylum. They talk to the asylum seekers maybe 1 or 2 times throughout the whole process, and they get paid however much they bill the Home Office. You have the councils who are housing the migrants, as well as the landlords who are also making a business out of this. You have workers in the hotels who are also making a living from this. You have the you have the catering services also making money from this. You have the security services. You have the taxis. You have the taxi industry, and you have all of these industries that are making a living from the asylum process. And I think the government is basically artificially propping up its economy using this in a sense. That's the only conclusion I can come to. It just doesn't make any sense. Because otherwise, why would a government willingly spend £100 minimum a day on asylum seekers getting taxis on one asylum seeker? That's just one person.
Yeah. Well, we know full well that the procurement strategy and processes in the public sector are terrible. All you've got to do is look at the NHS and the black hole that exists there because it's been mismanaged for so long. All you've got to do is roll that up to the rest of government and see how much is being wasted.
And you also have those companies who have housing officers in the hotel who are attending to the asylum seekers' needs and stuff, but they don't really do anything. The asylum seekers come to me to ask me for help because I've helped one of them, and then all of them start to come to me to ask for help because the people who are working for as housing officers don't really do anything. So they just basically sit around the office all day, free food, and then they use the phones. Maybe you walk around for a few hours. That's it. They don't really do much, and they're also on the payroll. So it's just a huge amount of wasteful spending that the government is doing, and it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, a lot of waste.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of waste.
Wow. Okay, G. Well, look, what I want to do now is move on to Q&A from the audience. So
Yep.
I just want to say from everyone and from me, thank you again for taking the time to talk to me, answer my questions, stay in contact since our first visit. Because as well as you and everyone in the chat can imagine, I do get a lot of people reaching out to me, saying that they're a migrant or asylum seeker, saying they're staying at these hotels, but unless I've actually met someone and seen it firsthand, it's hard to trust because there are a lot of people out there with bad intentions. But let's open the floor up to the questions. So if guys, you could all put your questions in the chat, and what I'll do is I'll select a few, and G can answer them. So we've got a few coming through already. Okay, so there's a good one from Richard, because I have seen a couple at these hotels as well as use Google Translate myself. But Richard has said, how effective can translation apps be in communicating between British people, English speakers, and migrants?
Yeah, they're really
And have you seen them in
helpful.
action?
Yeah, the asylum seekers inside of the hotel, whenever they need to talk to each other, they always use Google Translate if it's like between different nationalities. So between those who don't speak Arabic and those who speak other languages, so they always use Google Translate. So yeah, they're very, very effective. I think it manages to get the point across, because whenever they come to me to ask for help, I've managed to help them in the right way, and they're always happy. So yeah, I think they're very effective.
Which again is hilarious, because Google Translate costs nothing. Yet how much do we pay in translation services? That's insane. Another question, sorry, from Liberty Prime. Do you know anything about the NGOs or organizers orchestrating all of this? Sorry, Liberty, could you just clarify what you mean by all of this? Just to be as clear as possible for G. So I'll come back to that, G. Let's have a look at another one. Okay, here's a good one from Paul, because I have seen a few of these at the hotels. What do you know about the prepaid debit cards that immigrants, asylum seekers get?
Yeah, so if you're in the hotels, you get £9 a week, and well, that's including all of the other expenses that you're incurring, right? So that means housing, food. But when they send you to the dispersal home, that's not the hotel. They give you more money, so they give you about £40 a week, I think. And for a lot of the people who are in the hotels, they don't really need this money at all. They come strapped with cash, so it's just a bunch of wasteful spending on the government's part, because they're not doing their job in checking these people. It's just a lot of wasteful spending. But for those who do need it, it does really come in helpful. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's have a look. So here's an interesting one, because I suppose, G, you were here as a child, so you're not going to come from a boat, off a boat like some of them. But
No.
when you first started the process, I mean, did you have a British passport, or because if
No, I do not have a British passport, which is the entire reason why I'm here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was interesting. So, what sort of identification do you have? Is it one from your home country? Do you not have anything?
There's one from my home country, as well as a biometric residence permit that I had before. I also as a child, I had proof of my history living here, my goings in, goings out, that kind of stuff. So I've had my passport with me. They know that I don't have criminal history, that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. And it may be difficult because you've not gone through the process yourself, but have any of the others shared with you what the process is like when they arrive on the shores of England from the Channel?
Well, one thing that they always do mention in common is that the journey is definitely dangerous. They're really scared at the time. They've seen quite a few people die on the journey. It happens a lot, apparently. I'm not sure if that's true, because when you see the news, it's only like reported 1 or 2 times. But they do mention that a lot of people die on the Channel crossings. And after they come to the shores, they're pretty much just led straight away and given clothing, lined up, and then fingerprints are taken the photos of, and then sent into a screening interview, and then sent into the buses and into London.
Okay, thank you. One of the big questions, and I know this has been going on for a few of my videos. I know another YouTuber that I've gone out with before has actually opened one of the containers. I can't remember if you've got any on your site, but have you ever seen these containers and what's in them? Because some people have been speculating there's some quite dangerous things inside.
There's no containers on our site. We don't have any containers. What I'm guessing is probably stuff from the hotel. That's all I can speculate.
Yeah, so just storage wise. Okay, but
Yeah,
like you've not seen one.
Yeah, we don't have those in our hotel.
No, okay, which is kind of encouraging. If you know, if people think that it's going to be filled with weapons, you'd expect all of them to have them, wouldn't you? If it was that. Okay, let's have a look at some others. Oh, here's an interesting one. It's not a question, G, but this particular person has been quite vocal and critical of this interview, claiming it's fake and a sham. And this one here, they've said, I know, it's hilarious considering our experience together. I've actually seen you at one.
Yeah,
and the interactions you've had with staff. They've said this interview is as authentic as a late night infomercial. I am an asylum seeker writing from an actual migrant hotel, and I can tell you this interview is simply meant to prime their audience.
Yes, sure it is. They don't really like to tell anyone else who's not inside of the hotels their reasoning and stuff for coming here. But they've told me. I know it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm guessing this person is doubting me because I have a British accent. That's all I can assume. But
I know, and we've already explained this at the start, haven't we?
Yeah, people are surprised by it, yeah.
This person said that they're actually American, and I have met 2 American asylum seekers actually in Oxford. But yeah, I know. But supposedly they their food they get is rubbish and they get barely any food. It's cheap quality. But then again, coming from an American,
I can understand.
Yeah, they're used to high quality.
Yeah, coming from an American, I can understand, but people claiming to be coming from, starving countries, that kind of stuff. Nah.
Yeah, absolutely. Victoria, well, she's asking how old you are, but that's going to reveal too much, so we won't answer that one. Let's see what other questions we've got. A lot more comments. Okay, here's one again, which hopefully we'll get the right answer here. But you've mentioned that some can be aggressive, some don't like us because they think we're all racist, even though we're in, they're in the UK. They've come to the UK. We met a couple in a hotel in Hertfordshire, sort of northwest of London, north of London, and they were shouting at us saying that we've been in the country for 55 years, so they clearly had some aggression. Have you met any that have willfully or would willfully do any harm to British people?
Yes.
Have they spoken about it?
Yes, I have actually.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, it's not very good. They don't like them at all. They have a lot of them have this weird specific thing against British Indians and Pakistanis. It's really weird.
Really?
Yeah, so like how people in America have like these conspiracy theories with that Jews control America, right?
Yeah.
So some people from the Middle East, they come here, they hate the Indian minority, they hate the Indians. They just can't stand. They just cannot stand them. They openly.
I can understand that actually, because I've lived in the Middle East and I know that they do treat them like lethal.
For some reason, the people I've met here, they just do not like the Indians. They say like the Indians own the UK, the Indians this, the Indians that. It's just really weird.
So their beef is with British Indians and British Pakistanis, not with white British then?
No, white British, yeah, definitely. They do have a beef with white British.
Okay. In what sense? What have they said?
I mean, the way they talk about white girls, for example. So a lot of the people in my hotel go out on Friday nights. They just they degrade them. Like they talk about, if a girl ever says this to me, I'm gonna slap her, I can beat her, she can't do anything. And I just have to be like really quiet. I can't really say what I think about it. And they just like openly call them like, I'm sorry for using the slang, but they just openly call them whores. They do this, they do that. And like for guys, they say, oh, if there was like this white guy and he comes to talk to me, I would beat him, no problem. Look at me, look at them. Like they have no strength. They're weak. They basically view the white population like as weak. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying anything.
And they're like very confrontational towards a white person. So like if a white person maybe says something they don't like, they like really confrontational. They really want to get into it with them. They like say it because like, oh, these people ruin our countries, and I think that's where the problem comes from. I'm not sure how the civilian population ruined their countries, but even if it was true, like I'm not sure what the beef is. So yeah, the hate stems from the fact that the white people ruined their countries.
Nice. So they're coming over here. Okay,
Yeah.
that's insidious.
Yeah.
Kent Patriot asked a good question. I'll word it slightly different, but the security, a lot of them we see have no clue how to be security. They're aggressive. They don't really speak English. And we also question the validity of their SIA licenses. Why are the majority of them migrants, and are all of them legitimate?
Well, out of all of the security guards we have, there's only one person who's white, and like he's a nice lad. But the majority of them are immigrants, and I think the reason they're immigrants, I can only seem to like make the other asylum seekers in the hotel feel safe.
Okay.
And out of all of the security guards that we do get in the hotel, maybe 2 or 3 are probably qualified. The others don't really do anything. We had this one incident where this guy tries to fight this housing officer in the office. And then he kept running around throwing stuff, and like the security guard tried to like stop him, but the person who's like being aggressive started to get aggressive to the security guard, so the security guard just started running away and calling the police. Yeah, a lot of them are not qualified at all. They just come make easy money by just sitting around, because there's not really a lot of problems that happens. When it does happen, it's like quite bad, but there's not a lot of problems. They just come, sit down, use the phones, eat free food, and just it's free money.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I'm just looking at a few others. Yeah, that other guy, the American asylum seeker, is gone. So I think you've shown him the door. Let's have a look. Oh, someone's asked. I won't ask that one right now, but you've said they're on the minority. But if you could give us a bit more detail, have you met many who actually want to fit in and don't believe in this sort of indoctrination and hatred towards the natives?
Yeah, I've only met like 4 or 5. Not trying to imply anything, but they were from Christian countries originally.
Okay.
Like they didn't have any like actual reason to be here in the first place, though. I think that's what set them apart from the others. So like their reasoning was illegitimate, and they lied on their interviews and everything. They've left the hotel now because they've gotten the papers and everything. It worked out for them. But it was only these people that didn't really believe in the indoctrination, and a lot of the people that talk to me, who come to me, and ask me to go with them, they always ask me, why do the British hate us? Why do they do this? Why do they do that? Why are they so racist towards us? I always like to ask them like this one question. Like every time they ask me this, I always ask them, Britain was not racist 12 years ago. Britain was not racist at all. It was like really tolerant. I remember growing up in Britain. Maybe there was some bullying here and there, maybe a light-hearted bit of racism, but it was never actual directed towards like groups and everything until around like 10, 12 years ago. Something changed after that, and there's something changed. And if you feel like the British are more, if I asked them, like, if you feel the British are more racist now, why do you think that is? Because they were not racist like 10 years ago. And I think that really changes, like, their minds and stuff, like, it helps them, open up to it. But yeah, there's only a few that do not come with like this bias towards like the native population.
Yeah. There's only so much people could tolerate, being pushed around and stopped from progressing and being called racist and hateful, and it's there's only so much. Okay, so we're almost up to 1 hour and 15 minutes. So again, like I said, I appreciate your time on this, G. What I'll do is I'll get one more question from people, and like Jojo said, thank you. If you could put your questions in caps, because then I can see it a lot easier, because there are a lot of comments. So I'll wait for a few to come through. Some I'm not going to use, guys, because we've already kind of asked that question in a roundabout way. A lot of people saying thank you, G. I don't know if you can see that. So, appreciating your time, and also the risk that you're taking to have this conversation with us. Yep. Really important. Okay. I suppose, let's end on that one, because there's been a lot of evidence from me, from AY Audits, from a few others, of seeing people in these hotels working on these delivery bikes. So I guess first one would be, where do all of these bikes actually come from? Are they stolen? Are they from charities? Are they from Halfords? Because we've had a lot of theories.
Let's be honest, they're stolen. Let's be honest, they're stolen. A lot of the phone snatching and stuff is also, I don't want to overtly say, but a lot of it does happen from the migrant communities. There's only, when they do steal the phones, there's only phone shop people who own phone shops, that kind of stuff, who buy them. It's all driven by this thing. I've met this person who actually used to do a business back in Germany, where he used to recruit a couple of youngsters to go out and snatch phones for him, so that he could sell them, and like he used to pay them in cash and stuff for that. So I'm guessing the same thing is happening here. Like, due to the lack of jobs, maybe they can't find a job. They find these youngsters who are naive, who are looking to make quick cash. They recruit them to steal bikes, steal phones, and help them make quick money. And it's like win-win situation for both sides.
Some must be donated by local charities, though. They can't all be stolen. Do you know?
To be honest, we've had this one thing with our local charity where some people asked them if they could have a football.
Yeah.
The charity they weren't able to give us a football, so what hope does a charity have to give them bicycles? One charity is not suddenly going to give out 20 bikes to migrants from one city, are they? Yeah. People have had trouble finding a football or shoes, so why would the charity give them bikes all of a sudden?
Wow. That's wow. Okay. I've got one here. Richard, you've mentioned that the most important questions were never posed. We've asked some very important questions here, and we've also had some very important answers. So could you just kindly lay out what your most important questions are then that weren't posed? And we'll cover it. So I'm just waiting for him to write back, G, because I think we've actually covered quite a lot of important information here. Yeah. Family formation. Okay, well, I mean, that you may think that's one of the most important questions. But can you be more specific about family formation?
Family information?
No, he said family formation. So I'm trying to understand what he means by that. While he writes back, he may be meaning, are these single men coming over and then intended to bring their wives and children and things like that?
While we're on the subject of family, actually, there's a business going on with bringing the families back, families from those countries. Well, this is going to be very interesting for you. I don't think I've told you this one.
Okay.
So I was told in certain countries there's a business where the men or maybe women go to the UK or Germany, maybe Europe. They seek asylum. They ask them, do you have a husband or a wife? Even if they don't, they tell them a name. So the Home Office or any of those offices or any countries in Europe writes down the name as the husband and wife of that person. So after that person maybe is granted asylum, they sell that name to someone in their home country so they can come and gain citizenship.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just actual legitimate families. It's a business.
Yes.
I
was surprised by it as well. I was like, you're joking, like people actually do this? And I'm like, yeah. And I asked them like, so is there any specific name you choose? No, they just make up a name, and the officers and stuff write it down, and like they tell the person to in their home countries to pay this much money to their family, and that person pays when the family gets paid, that person comes, makes the journey, comes to the UK, says their name is this, I'm the husband or wife of that person, they've been granted asylum, I want to come in, and then they just let them in. There's not really any background checks or anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as you probably guessed, brothers and sisters say they're married, so they can come in and get asylum. So that was pretty obvious. Yeah, I've met quite a few people who already have sisters and stuff in the UK. So the sisters told the authorities their brother's name as their husbands or wives, and then they get citizenship as well. Yeah.
And then they're just laughing at us during this process.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. No wonder they think we're weak and pushovers. Empathy suicide, I believe people call it.
Sorry?
Empathy suicide, people
that's
call
what
it. It's going to be good when I actually get some hardcore, not saying that what you're saying isn't true, G, but you know what people are like. Getting some hardcore evidence would really bolster these claims.
Yeah, it would.
We'll get it at some point.
Yeah, you just have to find like the right person who does not look white. You just need to find that person who doesn't look white, is concerned about the country, who can gain access to these communities to actually get them to talk about it.
Yeah.
There were certain times, where I was talking to them, I was thinking, should I take a voice recording of this stuff? But it would make it really obvious about who I am, because if I do get found out, I can't really leave this place. So yeah.
Yeah, it's I know there's that line that we'd love to cross, but it's the risk reward thing, isn't it? The risk for you is too great, and you've already risked enough doing this. So again, I really do appreciate it, G. Thank you so much for your time. I know everyone in the chat is saying thank you, like I've already said a few times. Is there anything else you want to say in a final comment before we end this?
I don't think there's much else except for small details. But other than that, no, I don't think there's anything that hugely important. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Well, thanks again, G. I'll end this now. I appreciate your time, and undoubtedly we're going to stay in touch. So it'd be good to follow your journey and see if you get that appeal approved. And well, I know everyone will probably want to buy you a drink once that happens because you're a real asset.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see you again soon, G. Thank you and have a good evening.
You too.
Bye now.
Bye.
Well, everyone. Wow. That's eye-opening. A lot to digest there. A lot to digest. So normally I'd open this to more of a panel, but we've been here an hour and 20 minutes and I don't want it to extend anymore. I've just noticed that it's been on Laudits and not Laudits TV. So what I'll probably do is do a follow-up analysis video based on the clips from this, and we'll take it from there and publish something on Laudits TV. But guys, thank you very much for joining. I really do appreciate you being here for what's been quite a long live stream, but I think it's been really beneficial. We found some eye-opening stuff. Now we just need to get some hardcore evidence to make it undisputable. Yes, Jay, if anyone that's joined late, you can rewatch it, not a problem. It'll be on Laudits, not Laudits TV. I don't think you can, Paul. I'm not sure. I will try, but otherwise, you know. But yeah, if you could share this with people, get it out as much as possible, because there's been some groundbreaking, revealing stuff straight out of a migrant's mouth. But yeah, thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now, everyone.